Good morning and welcome to the fifth and final meeting of the BR Subcommittee on Economic Development, Tourism, and Environmental Protection. Just as a quick reminder here for the members, the new protocol allows us to use the technology of the 2022 or 2021 year going into 2022, which has made it extremely nice for us to have all the remote access here online. And so some members checked in online. We also have sent out all the materials for this meeting prior to, so there'll be no materials here for everybody, but you should have had all those prior to this meeting. At this time, I'm going to ask for our assistant to call the roll, please. Oh, sorry, I put her on the spot. She's coming. And our audio is acting up, so bear with us.
Senator McGarvey. Senator Schroeder.
I'm present remotely in the district for Senator McGarvey.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Senator Schroeder.
Present in the room.
Senator Smith.
I am present remotely from my district.
Representative Gentry.
Present remotely from the district.
Representative Hale.
Present in the room.
Representative Kulkarni. Representative Maddox.
Present remotely.
Thank you. Representative Rowland. Senator McDaniel. Representative Petrie. Representative Reed. Representative Weber.
Present in the room.
Representative Beckler.
Present in the room.
Chair Caslin.
Present in the room. It looks like we do have enough members for a quorum, so at this time I'm going to ask approval of the minutes from the September 24th meeting.
So move.
Have a motion. We have a second. All right. Okay. At this time, we're going to go just a little bit out of order. Senator Thayer has a presentation with Hank Phillips, the President and CEO of the Kentucky Travel Industry Association. And Senator Thayer's got to get to another meeting. So we're going to ask you guys to come up and introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Thank you for allowing our testimony this morning. A lot of things have changed in the last 2 years, one of which, of course, is due to the largesse that our Congress has deemed appropriate during these times. We have a lot of dollars through the American Rescue Plan that the General Assembly can appropriate for various projects. And while I, Representative Beckler, don't support the profligate spending that our Congress has engaged in over the last 22 months or so, the fact of the matter is we have federal dollars that we have to spend. And I've identified an area that I think everyone on this committee will be sympathetic to, and that's Kentucky's tourism industry. And you're not going to see me before a lot of appropriations subcommittees asking for money. I'm not here to appropriate and spend my time appropriating dollars, but in these unique times, it calls for a unique action. And so I'm going to start off by making the ask before I turn things over to Hank Phillips from the KTIA. I am going to complete a request that I will turn in to Chairman McDaniel for $75 million in ARPA funds to help our tourism economy recover. Now, there have been a lot of industries that have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. As well as by the ill-advised shutdowns and lockdowns and capacity restrictions, which in hindsight, actually in foresight, a lot of us thought were a bad idea. In hindsight, they look even worse. But our tourism economy was absolutely devastated and is still in recovery from what happened in the pandemic. They're having a hard time hiring people to work tourism-related jobs, and still trying to get people back into the travel mode to visit our tourism destinations around the state. You may ask why I'm interested in this. Well, Kentucky's number one tourism destination is smack dab in the middle of my district, and that's the Ark Encounter in Williamstown, Kentucky, and Grant County. And Representative Maddox, of course, who's attending virtually this morning, knows about the economic impact of that particular venue. But I'm sure looking across the room and knowing who's on via Zoom, all of our districts are affected positively by the tourism industry. Not only from Kentuckians who stay home and visit these locations, but the folks who come from all over the country and indeed all over the world. We live within a day's drive of 2/3 of our country's population. And with our interstate system and our airports, we are well positioned in this recovery to get these people back to Kentucky visiting our tourism venues. The problem is, and this has been a problem for a long time, we don't spend enough on tourism marketing in general in Kentucky. And we, quite frankly, get our butts kicked by surrounding states like Michigan and Missouri and South Carolina and Louisiana and Florida. You all see the ads. And those states, simply put more of a priority on spending for tourism marketing and advertising. And they've got a head start on us recovering from the economic downfall that occurred due to the actions of the government in various states due to COVID. And some of these states were better prepared because they dealt in a different, more business-friendly, more freedom-oriented way during the pandemic. So we need to play catch-up, and we need to send a message to our tourism industry that we're willing to take some of these ARPA dollars and spend it on helping the tourism and travel industry recover. Tourism and travel they are eligible for these funds. I wouldn't ask for general fund dollars. You're going to see coming from me a very conservative approach on general fund dollars. And in talking to Chairman McDaniel, I think that's probably the direction we're headed in the Senate. I look at those funds a lot differently than I look at these federal dollars. So to help make the case better than I can, because he's living it every day and hearing from his folks out in the counties in the various regions of the Commonwealth, I'm going to turn it over to Hank Phillips from the Kentucky Travel Industry Association.
Thank you very much, Senator Thayer. I'm tempted to start by saying that concludes my report. That was excellent, and it demonstrates your understanding and your leadership when it comes to tourism and the economic engine of tourism. So thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, thank you for the invitation to be here to discuss where we've been, where we are, and where we would like to go with your support as the tourism industry of the state. It's important to keep tourism in context, and I'll start with that. And that is the reason we do tourism at the end of the day is for the people of Kentucky, for the families of Kentucky, through the economic activity that we foster, through the jobs that we create, through the tax revenue that we generate, which in 2019, $863 million in local and state tax revenue generated by tourism. And that accrues to the people of Kentucky through the programs and services they receive, through the jobs they receive, through the activity of the economy that they benefit from. So that's why we're here. That's why we do it. And that economic engine, as Senator Thayer said, was devastated last year. I'm going to talk about our plan. You've got that. You can see it on the screen as well. Before I do that, just to put a bright line under some of the situations that occurred last year, I'll use some data from the Tourism, Arts, and Heritage Cabinet, an annual study they do of the economic impact of tourism in Kentucky. And I'll just share these points with you. The overall economic impact of tourism last year fell by $2.9 billion. Nearly $3 billion in economic activity from tourism went away last year. The most painful data point is that we lost 14,850 jobs from this industry. And as the Senator indicated, we're struggling to recover those jobs and to try to recover. Additionally, Overall visitor spending in the state declined 26.5%. So, as we've said often, tourism was the first hit, the hardest hit, and has one of the longest paths to recovery of all of the industries that we know all industries were impacted by the pandemic and the economic crisis it brought on. The point that I'll make about those numbers, there's really two. There's two stories that are told there. And the first is the size and scope of this industry. It is an economic driver for the Commonwealth. You can see that in the numbers as they were, even as the numbers as they became in 2020. So that's part of the story. That's the reason that we feel appropriate in requesting an ARP Act appropriation, is to take what has been and to build it back again, to recover, and then to become stronger, more productive, more competitive going forward. With a crisis that we've confronted of the depth and duration that it has been, recovery is not an overnight process. Travel has certainly picked up, no doubt about it, but we are still a long way from full recovery. And the plan that we will bring forward to you will address that as well as the future. Let me talk about, for just a second, give you some insights into where things stand now. The hotels were earlier this year beginning to gain some traction and to have an improved year. Then along came Delta, and that traction receded. Now, instead of making hay in the summer and fall of this year, they're going to be having to wait until the spring and summer of next year. And that's after all of last year and the impact that they experienced. Talking about meetings and conventions, one of the most lucrative aspects of our industry. In Louisville, last month, they reported that they are still 56% below 2019 levels of events and conferences and conventions. 56% below. And that is for bookings next year. So in 2022, based on current bookings, 56% below last year. And then, again, as the senator indicated, the whole industry, hotels, attractions, restaurants, are being stymied in their recovery by the labor shortage. Now, the point of our proposal, which I'm going to detail in just a minute, is not just to get back to where we were. We have an opportunity, we have always had an opportunity to be stronger and more productive than we've ever been previously. And that's the ultimate goal, and that's the ultimate objective of our plan we're bringing to you. But competition is ramping up. And I keep echoing what the senator said. We've always struggled with competition with other states, despite the tremendous assets we have for visitors to enjoy and to experience. Now the competition is ramping up because other states recognize that just because travel is going to increase, that people don't come to a state just by happenstance. They do it as a result of marketing, of being attracted, appealed to come to a given destination, a given state. So that competition is ramping up. Let me just go through a quick list, an unfortunately long list of states. Ohio, $145 million from ARP funds for tourism. Louisiana, $77.5 million. Virginia, $50 million. South Carolina, I think their number is $50 million. Illinois, $18 million. Arizona, $100 million. New York, get ready for the big to get bigger. $400 million in ARPA funds for tourism. California, $100 million. Florida, $100 million. Yesterday, I learned that Puerto Rico has invested $150 million from ARP funds in tourism. Missouri is in the process of approving $100 million. Other states that are in the process are Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, New Hampshire, Nevada, Tennessee. I like that emphasis. Mississippi, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. And if I'm doing something wrong,
Just keep moving.
all right. So demand has and will increase, but we need to be competitive, strong through our proposal to you to meet that demand, compete for it, and to come out better at the other end. Senator mentioned that the American Rescue Plan funds allows for tourism. It not only allows for it in the section of the Act that speaks to impacted industries, the only industry referenced is travel, tourism, and hospitality. The only one mentioned, by example, travel, tourism, and hospitality. After the Act was passed and signed into law, the Department of Treasury came out with an FAQ. And one of the questions contained in that was, may recipients, meaning states, use funds to assist impacted industries other than travel, tourism, and hospitality? Treasury's answer was yes, provided that recipients, states, consider the extent of the impact in such industries as compared to tourism, travel, hospitality. In other words, Congress recognized the devastation of this industry and set up this industry as a yardstick by which other industries' impact needs to be measured. So let me now detail for you the elements of our plan. It's 3 parts, all of which revolve around the power of tourism marketing. First part is $15 million we are requesting go to the Department of Tourism to aid and supplement their current funding in the promotion of Kentucky to the rest of the country and around the world. Marketing communities is critical in tourism and tourism marketing. We are requesting $35 million for tourist commissions to be distributed by the Department of Tourism. And I mentioned the criticality of the meetings and conventions sector. We are requesting $25 million to be distributed to the tourist commissions to revitalize the meetings and conventions sector of our industry. That total is $75 million. We know that's a lot of money. I'm not going to pull any punches. Frankly, we could use more. You heard other states that have invested more. But there's a certain reasonableness about our industry. $75 million will be effective. On the other hand, we recognize other needs, other priorities that you will be wrestling with during the session. That's why we've asked for the 75. On the other hand, just bear in mind that's less than 3.5% of the total of the ARP funds coming to Kentucky. So for less than 3.5% of those funds, you can help this industry recover and come out stronger than it was. We have been very attentive to accountability within our plan, to methods of allocation, and to allowable uses. Wherever possible, and I'm just going to summarize this rather than go into details, but I'll be happy to answer questions on these points as well as any others. Wherever possible, we have looked at existing statutes, regulations, and processes to tie into these funds we are requesting. We don't think wheels need to be reinvented. There are tested methods of accountability, tested methods of allocation of funds, and we would propose that those, as much as possible, be used with these funds. I'll finish there, take questions. I just want to say to you, thank you all for the great work you do, for the increased awareness and understanding of our industry as we've suffered through what we have. We ask for your support in the recovery and the future growth and productivity of Kentucky's tourism industry. Thank you.
Thank you all for that presentation. Members, is there any questions? All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hank, thank you for the presentation. I had the opportunity to meet recently with Hank over the phone and with our local tourism folks in Bullitt County to discuss this specific plan. Senator, I want to thank you for advocating for this here today, reaching out to your leadership. I've talked to the chairman of the House Appropriations Committee and made a similar request. Folks who've been on this committee and in the General Assembly know that in the course of 9 years that I've been here, I have long advocated for additional dollars to tourism with the old thought that you spend money to make money. And as it's been illustrated here today, states surrounding us are really eating our lunch when it comes to tourism and bringing those tourism dollars in. Bullitt County, as we know, head of the Bourbon Trail, a lot of folks come there. Bernheim, we can bring a lot more folks here, and I think the folks from the tourism industry have outlined a plan that works and is conscientious of these federal dollars that are going to be coming in. I would just point to item number 2 in the discussion that I had with our local folks. If memory serves me correctly, they currently receive about $18,000 a year to expend on local tourism promotion. That's for a county of about 85,000 people with a lot to offer. Under this particular plan, that increase would increase to about $613,000, which our local folks have outlined spending priorities and how they would do that. And I think they're going to be very conservative and very mindful of where those dollars are coming from. But I would just encourage the members of this committee to reach out to your local tourism folks and discuss with them the impact that these additional federal ARPA funds will have on our local communities to help them promote tourism and bring people here. We have the best state in the union, in my opinion. And when we market that and we let other people know what we have here, they want to come here. As I've said before, a couple years ago, my wife and I decided over the course of the summer to stay in Kentucky, and we just traveled the state. And there is a tremendous amount to offer. We didn't get to it all. There's a lot of places I didn't even know about in this state. But I want to thank you, Senator. Thank you for your lead on this, and Hank, thank you for presenting this plan. And I hope that we will see this appropriation in the 22 session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Well. I think Senator Thayer has a follow-up to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Weber, I eagerly accept the alliance that we have formed to try to get this done. In marketing, you're trying to get someone to buy your product or your service, or in this case, we're selling experiences, Kentucky tourism destination experiences. And in order to do that, we have to first create awareness and then turn that awareness into interest, and then finally deliver on the action, which means somebody decides to visit a Kentucky destination or destinations. In order to do that, you have to touch somebody at least 7 times. And in today's digitally driven economy, where a good marketing plan will mix the traditional TV, radio, newspaper, direct mail, et cetera, with digital and over-the-top TV advertising and things like that, it may take even more because the attention span of the average consumer is divided so many ways because of the way entertainment is delivered. So I'm a big believer in, like you said, in the marketing side of things, you got to spend money to make money. And we need to get this industry back on track. All those jobs created, they pay taxes. They pay local taxes. They pay state taxes. Those dollars come into our general fund to help us pay for education and correction and Medicaid and pensions and all the other things we have to pay for at the state government level, and helps our local governments deliver the services that our constituents demand. So I think this is a win-win. and I really appreciate the time and attention given it today. And I look forward to working with you, Representative Weber, to try to get this done.
Thank you, Senator Thayer. We have two more questions or comments. Chairman Beckler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the presentation. Can you assure us that none of the money will be used for programs or places that require a vaccine mandate?
I can't make that assurance. I'm not even sure what those places are.
The convention center, for example?
We wouldn't try to dictate the policies of those locations. Senator may have a response, but I can't. I'm not in a position to offer that assurance.
Senator Thayer?
Senator Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think it's the job of government to tell businesses how to operate. I don't think businesses should have vaccine mandates, but I also don't think it's the job of government to come in and play Big Brother and tell them how to operate. And so I would support tying those two together in this case. And I understand you and I probably differ on that, but that's my position.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I might add, we wouldn't see money going to literally directly to convention centers. It is generally to market and promote groups coming in to utilize those facilities. I'm not sure that helps with the question, but just to clarify the point. But thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Chairman Beckler, follow up?
I'm not going to, tie up the committee meeting on this subject, but I'd be happy to talk to you about it and share my concerns. If we are in fact going to give out $75 million and all money that the government gives comes with some kind of strings. There's no such thing as free money or free lunch. So while Senator Thayer and I agree on quite a few things, we also disagree on some things. And I'd be happy to have that conversation with you and let you know my thoughts on that. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
President Reagan once said, if we agree on 80%, I call you my friend. So, friend, I appreciate your position on this. And I think Hank pointed out, state government isn't going to be writing a check to the convention center. There are guardrails and programs in place and formulas that these dollars will flow through to advertise and promote and market these facilities. All of them. I mean, you look at the Pure Michigan advertising campaign. I mean, we need something like that here in Kentucky with those kind of dollars spent in a major region. Again, we live within 2/3. We live within a day's drive of 2/3 of the country's population.
I will mention, as far as the meetings and conventions and so on, where I think those decisions are best made are by the groups that hold the events, that come in and utilize a convention center or some other venue. To take it down to the level of the organizer and their group, their participants, their members who attend, I think that's where the determination of what should or should not be done, what's required or not required, I think that's the best place to leave that sort of decision making.
Well, last comment, I guess, is going to be from the chairman here. So I've heard it mentioned several times, but in the world of business I come from, we say that business is a contact sport. And you have to make a touch to make a sale. And I'm glad to see this $75 million being proposed to be spent on marketing. There's no reoccurring debt from this, and we look to see if the return on investment be big. And we just look at this whole entire committee meeting that we're going to be having today is dealing with the economic impact of what we've experienced for the last 2 years and the devastating effects it's had all across all industries, the massive inflation that we're seeing. And I think this is a great area that we can spend some funds on, because you look at not just the convention centers, you look at not just your big attractions, but all the mom and pop coffee shops and restaurants and all the other things that that make a livelihood off of those people coming to their communities. And so I think this is a good way, because especially in a cash-strapped time frame for these businesses, they don't have the money to spend on marketing. They're just worried about trying to keep their employees employed. So I think this is a good area, and this is the right committee to be in front of as we make our recommendations to the appropriations chair. These will be the things that we're going to be studying and trying to figure out how to navigate through the next 60 days or so here in January. So at this time, does any other members have comments? If not, we're going to move on to the next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do appreciate your consideration for this request, and very grateful for the time and attention this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
all.
much.
So we're going to get back onto our schedule here. So the next presentation will be from the community and technical college system, and as they make their way forward, this committee meeting, we wanted to have a focus on kind of the workforce shortages that we're facing today, that's being driven by inflation, that's being driven by the lack of people in the workforce as we try to rebuild our economy. And, you know, I feel like we got all the right players at the table to start figuring out how we play offense on creating individuals that are skilled and ready for for the workplace. So at this time, as you all make your way to the table, if you can introduce yourself for the record, and I'll let you all start your presentation.
Thank you so much, and good morning. I'm Chris Williams. I serve as Chancellor or Chief Academic and Workforce Development Officer for KCTCS. Senator Caslin, Representative Beckler, members of the committee, we really appreciate the opportunity today to talk about your community and technical college system with facilities in your area. With me are Dr. Phil Neal, who is the president of South Central Kentucky Community and Technical College, and Dr. Scott Williams, who's the president at Owensboro Community and Technical College. As you know, KCTCS is statewide. We have 16 colleges, 73 locations, a very strong online presence. We teach people all over the world. We offer 115 programs of study, over 95% of which are technical programs designed to put people right into the workforce. We have a unique mission that prepares people to go directly to work. That might include a transfer to a university to get a bachelor's degree, but more often it puts them right into the workforce, and it could be through credit or non-credit preparation. We also provide training and assessment for new and incumbent workers for our industry partners. Our 16 colleges are the largest providers of talent training and preparation in the Commonwealth. You can see that we train 82% of skilled trade workers, 66% of Kentucky's nursing and allied health credentials. Let me just take a brief moment on these credentials. We start with certificates, build on top, potentially with a diploma, both of which are higher skills training, and then an associate degree, which adds some general education, employability education courses, and may transfer to a university. And this is where we're especially proud to partner with the Kentucky Department of Education and our dual credit providers, because students can earn these credentials while they are also in high school through our partnerships. We have graduated over 500,000 individuals over our 20 years and have the current status as the #2 provider in the country for credentials awarded as a percentage of population. We work with many partners to ensure a skilled workforce ready for the future of work in Kentucky. We meet collectively with all of these organizations to make sure we're on track to meet the state's needs. So Dr. Neal's now going to speak to how colleges choose which technical programs to offer.
We oftentimes get asked that very question: how do you decide which programs to offer? How do you know when to expand a program? How do you know when to phase out or sunset a program? And it starts with conversations with industry. Our close industry partners are critical to the decisions that we make. And many of you have seen an image similar to the one that you see on the screen now. This is from the Bowling Green Chamber. I sit on that as a board, on their board as a board member, and they are a great voice of industry, as many of our chambers are, as well as the Kentucky Chamber in and of itself. But what you see on there is a report from August showing the open jobs report. And many of our chambers do publish open jobs report, and alarmingly, those numbers continue to climb. as we move forward through the pandemic. It is important for our good partners in industry, both at the chamber level and individual industries, for us to dig in with them to the data so that we better understand what a data point means to us. We know that any one data point is not accurate, a complete picture in and of itself, and this number that you see on the screen right now shows what may appear to be 7,384 jobs. Well, we have to dig into that number to know two things. Is that truly 7,384 different jobs, and which ones are they? And then number two, since we are post-secondary education providers, which of those jobs or what percentages of those jobs need post-secondary education training? So I'm going to briefly walk you through the decision matrix that we use to make decisions about which programs that we bring to bear for our industry partners, as well as expand and sunset. So we try to do what I call a triangulation of data first and foremost. First, we look at a number similar to what you just saw. We look back at historical job postings, whether that be over a recent quarter, a recent year, or longer, to see what the trends have been in the demand side, the number of job advertisements that we see within our respective regions. We then bring to bear looking forward in time to see what the future predictions are, predictive analytics, and we rely upon great organizations like KY Stats, who I think just does a phenomenal job at looking into our future region by region, sector by sector, to show what growth potential there is within each industry. We also sometimes use Federal Labor Bureau of Labor Statistics data to help us understand the future. But even those two data points don't paint the complete picture. So we then go back to our industry partners, where we bring them to the table and ask them to help validate the data so we can make the proper decisions for the Commonwealth. And every one of our colleges, all 16 of our colleges, in all of our program areas, we have what we call advisory committees. So the nursing programs have an advisory committee made up of representatives from industry. They're nurses, they're nurse practitioners, they're nurse administrators from our hospitals and other healthcare providers. Same with welding, same with culinary, same with accounting, and so forth. And our faculty work with those industry representatives on these advisory committees every fall and every spring to ensure that, number one, we're teaching the proper competencies that our industries need our graduates to master before they're being hired into our Kentucky industries. Number two, that we're using the proper equipment. But then number three, getting back to the labor market statistics, that we're producing the proper level or quantity of labor. And so I'm going to walk you down a scenario of first starting with looking backwards at our historical job postings data to help you better understand the kind of depth that we have to go to in working with our industry partners to understand this demand so that we can then ensure a supply on the other side of this. One of the things that we do look at is what percentage of the job postings that we see, regardless of how many there are, actually require post-secondary education. And these two charts that you see here, one is several years pre-COVID, one is during COVID, and the numbers don't change an awful lot. But there's more to the story that we need to talk with industry about, because as you might imagine, looking at the blue portions of each pie chart, it may look like many of the jobs that are posted around my region of the state don't require any education at all. There's more to that story, and that's where we have to talk with industry, because many of our industries are hiring people into more grow your own or work and learn models, where they'll bring them on without the skills necessarily that they desire them to have, but they'll partner with a community and technical college in more apprenticeship or work and learn type models, which are becoming more and more popular across the Commonwealth. And Dr. Williams will be talking about some of those here in just a moment. But we have to understand the degree to which industry needs us to provide training for the positions that we have posted. Okay. So some of the tools that we do use to then look into the future, as I mentioned before, through KY Stats on the bottom left of your screen, are a tremendous set of data tools that just help us look into the future. We also have some on the upper right that help us within KCTCS look at the data. I'm going to zero into one particular occupation that's a high-profile occupation over the last couple of years in particular, and that is registered nursing. How do we know if we're producing enough registered nurses? It was mentioned earlier in the committee that there is a shortage of nurses right now, and we need to continue working on meeting that demand. But what exactly is that demand? So in my region, the 10 counties of the Barren River Area Development District, KY Stats showed that in 2018 there was approximately 2,283 registered nurse jobs in place in our region across all the healthcare providers. And it was predicted within 10 years of then, by the year 2028, that would grow approximately 13%. So as an educational provider, we have to sit back and say, well, are we prepared to meet that demand? Are we meeting the current demand, and then how do we grow the supply to meet the growing demand? And so we bring our industry advisory committees to the table. Ones like you see on the screen, the Medical Center, are great partners in helping us to grow and understand what that growth looks like in the future. And we are actually growing our registered nursing program as a result of collaboration with that particular industry right now. So as we look at this triangulation of data, the red box shows the 3 steps that I was just referencing in relation to registered nursing. So number 1, if we look at past job postings, if we simply look at the number of times registered nurse jobs were posted over the last year in South Central Kentucky, it may appear that there were 1,107 different nursing jobs, but we know there's some duplication in those numbers. So again, we have to take it to the next level and then look at the predictive models for the future to better understand what that picture looks like. And according to KY Stats, we will need to be producing an additional 30 registered nurses per year, as well as backfill 160 that we lose to attrition, retirement, or other reasons. And so close to 200 is what we're going to have to produce amongst the educational providers each year in our region to meet this demand. And so then we finally bring industry to the table. So companies like the Med Center and many other healthcare providers that we provide registered nurses to, we bring them to the table every fall and every spring to validate those numbers, and they themselves tell us it's approximately 200 a year in our region that we will have to be producing. So then that sets the picture for the demand side of it. Then we go over to the green box, which is we have to take a look in the mirror and say, what's our supply look like of all the educational providers? So at my college, KCTCS, we put out about 50 or more registered nurses each year, and then according to the publicly accessible data for Western Kentucky University, they produce 180 to 200 or so per year in the registered nurse realm. So based upon balancing that supply with the demand, then we in higher education can then make the decision of, do we maintain programs at their current levels? Do we expand them to meet a growing need? Do we create a program that does not exist currently at our educational institutions to meet a new demand that we may not have seen in the past? Or in some cases, do we suspend, or what we call sunset, a program because the demand is no longer there by industry? So I hope that helps give you a better understanding of the type of data analytics and interactions that we have with industry to make the decisions. Now Dr. Scott Williams will be showing you at scale the types of decisions that have been made across KCTCS.
Actually, I'm going to rest that microphone back. The other Williams is going to rest that microphone back for a minute and just speak to that we really do monitor carefully the programs that we're using. When it's time to close a program, when there's no longer need, or when we just cannot enroll students because there's not student interest, regardless of employer need, then we close a program or sunset it, teach out the students in that program, and redirect those resources to a program that better then meets the community's needs. So you can see that over the years here, we have by credential level, sunset many of our programs and added many of our programs. This is the ones we've added, and often those are a program that was at one college, and then another college finds that an employer in their community needs the same program. We do share the same curriculum across our programs. Examples of brand new programs that have been developed to meet community need are these in cybersecurity, orthotics, and prosthetics, just programs that had not existed in our program base before but have clear need. Usually they are to meet employer need, but I can tell you that the computer engineering technology program is a partnership between Bluegrass Community and Technical College and the University of Kentucky, and those students will receive both an associate degree and then a university degree, which will prepare them for a different level of cybersecurity jobs. And then we spoke to closing programs, and while it hasn't been a huge number, each of these does represent a program and resources that we have closed and moved on to meet new needs. I know, Senator Caslin, that you specifically wanted to know how we recruit students. How do we bring students into the pipeline? One of the ways is through this extraordinary opportunity that the legislature supported several years ago and continues to support and change, and that's the Work Ready Scholarship Program. That is an outstanding example of a partnership to really support both students and our employers. And it's a marketing piece for us because it is a last dollar applied scholarship. Often if students can't get other financial aid, this is the one that's ready for them. And so you can see over the last 2 years or a couple of year time periods, the numbers of dollars that have increased in here and the number of dollars awarded. And healthcare continues to be one of the largest use areas. But of course, they're in the 5 sectors that were determined by the Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board. We use recruiters in schools, we use our dual credit program, we use personal outreach, peer connections, social media, TV and radio, and digital presence to invite students into our programs. And our workforce solutions areas, which work with companies on a daily basis at the colleges, are also at those companies, working with their employees and recruiting out of their employee pools for new education. So this website is an example of a targeted program for displaced workers. It was made available in June and got just thousands of hits over the last few months as we said, come back to work. It's the, COVID is decreasing, schools are reopening, it's time to come back to work. This website can help you find the right place to work. And often that re-engagement is through a work and learn program, as Dr. Neal said. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Scott Williams to speak to those opportunities.
Thank you, Dr. Williams. And yes, one of the ways in which we really optimize engaging students, especially adult students, is through this Earn and Learn programmatic delivery system. So probably the most famous one, most well-known, is Kentucky FAME, which is an advanced manufacturing technician program, which students are sponsored by a company, work for that company, and then go to school so many days a week in order to enhance their craft. And so this is a program that was actually started by Bluegrass Community Technical College and Toyota. It has now branched out throughout the Commonwealth. In fact, almost all the schools within the KCTCS system offer a FAME program. What we found through the FAME program is that it's highly successful. 80% of those students complete the program. That's a significantly large number. And it's equal across demographics. So it doesn't matter the demographic of the student, they're all successful at a very high completion rate. Graduates that come out of that program earn more money. In fact, the average FAME student is earning about $100,000 a year. And so I was joking with them, I may need to look for another. Hey, look at this as a video, but earn about $100,000 a year, which is about $45,000 more than a student that would be a non-FAME student. And so lastly, what we have found from these students by surveying them, 94% said that the most important piece of this program was the on-the-job training, and that was what a significant component of it is. We've also have moved into apprenticeships, registered apprenticeship. Currently, all 16 colleges are offering these to more than 65 companies and unions, and almost 500 total apprentices currently are working within that pipeline. We have really committed to the apprenticeship delivery system. We've rolled out a whole suite of apprenticeship services that now we can provide unions and companies with this wraparound services, in that we've also redirected resources to each of the 16 colleges so that they have a coordinator of apprenticeships at each of the colleges. Now, FAME is not the only work and learn model across the state. There are a number of them throughout the 16 colleges of KCTCS. And I'm going to mention just a few of them or highlight just a small percentage of those that are offered. So these just give you an example. So one is Skyflex. This is a program offered through the South Central Kentucky Community Technical College. It's really centered around skilled trade students that go to school 1 day a week and allowing them to work 5 days a week with a company so they can earn and learn while they're working. Ashland has a 24-hour welding program. They actually teach in 3 shifts, 8 hours apiece, so they're running around the clock. This allows them, those students, they can work in the pipeline industry around Ashland Community Technical College and still go to school to earn their certifications in welding. At OCTC, we have a TechX program. Chairman Senator Castle's familiar with this. This is really an accelerated program. It's a competency-based work and learn model that allows and prepares students for the fabrication industry. Our West Kentucky friends at West Kentucky Community Technical College have a team launch program that allows dislocated youth that are at risk. It gives them an opportunity to actually do internships, paid internships, and work experiences while they're going to school. Hazard Community and Technical Colleges has their K-Tech program, which is actually a high school apprenticeship-like program for health care that those students can get a certificate for graduating from high school. At OCTC, we have Go Careers. Go Careers is a FAME model, but it's for business administration systems. So in this one, we're working with organizations as large as U.S. Bank, in which students are actually working towards or working for the bank and are earning the opportunity to get an associate's degree in that area. Jefferson Community Technical College has Toyota T10. This particular program is tied to the Toyota industry, producing certified technicians, ASC certified Toyota technicians, and gives them the opportunity to work in that service while going to school. BIT 502 is also in Jefferson Community Technical College. This is with a partnership with Code Louisville, and this allows students to work in the computer industry and earn an associate's degree in information technology. Jefferson's Mercedes-Benz Accelerate program takes technicians that are already working in the industry. They are Mercedes-Benz certified, and they get an accelerated program into an automotive tech degree within just a year. Jefferson's Built is a construction apprenticeship-like program that's been quite effective. And Madisonville Community College has both a GE program apprenticeship with their local GE manufacturer, as well as an accelerated AIT program that allows students to kind of come in on at their pace in order to earn their degree in earn their degree industrial technicians. So now the real question is, are we truly connecting the supply with demand and producing KCTCS graduates that are to be employed by Kentucky companies? That's really what we want to do. And the way we've been able to determine this is, again, this was mentioned earlier, but Kentucky Stats has a post-secondary feedback report that can actually give us the data that illustrates the importance that KCTC is playing in job placements for Kentucky's workforce. And so the next chart shows you, this is data from August of 2021, and it shows that KCTCS job placement with Kentucky companies is 30% higher than those of the four-year institutions, with not an appreciable difference in starting wages. So truly showing that KCTCS is the primary provider of skilled workforce in Kentucky.
So, we are supported primarily through state funding, through the performance funding model, and also by tuition. And our goal is always to keep tuition very affordable for our students. We are their gateway to higher education, both through our dual credit programs and through our regular college programs and through the workforce programs that we do directly with employers. So as you and others in the legislature consider your budget spending priorities, we ask that you keep in mind that our 16 colleges are providing the skilled talent pipeline that stays in Kentucky, works in Kentucky, retains current companies, and invites in new ones. And I would be remiss in not saying that ECTC and JCTC, Elizabethtown and Jefferson, were both instrumental in bringing forward an SK innovation to our Commonwealth. We've listed a few of our funding priorities to increase student success and allow KCTCS to expand opportunities. We often serve a harder to serve population, and that population does require more wraparound student services. And so we ask you keep our learners and our employer partners in mind in 4 ways: that you support the Council on Post-Secondary Education post-secondary budget request, which includes an increase in performance-based funding, bonding to address long-deferred building maintenance, and a workforce initiative request for KCTCS that would allow us to better address high-demand workforce needs. We're competing for salaries for our instructors just as employers are competing in their industries. We ask that you support the healthcare initiative request in the CPE agency budget request that would be used to address critical needs in the allied health fields. As you saw, we're one of the top providers of training in those fields. We need those funds to continue to expand our programs. There are 2 that request that would help us actually save $5 million a year without harming anyone in the process, and we could then redirect those funds. Those are adding a FAFSA requirement to the eligibility requirements for the 12 state-mandated tuition waivers and amending the awards to be last dollar. We're leaving federal tuition dollars on the table when we do not have that as a simple requirement in those scholarships. We also ask that you pass the forthcoming dual credit merger bill, which would, among other things, amend the dual credit tuition rate to 50%. Our students do have scholarships against that 50%, but our colleges are eating a lot of potential tuition dollars to put in other areas through the current tuition waiver fund. So with that, we want to really thank you for your attention and your interest, the support we know you bring to KCTCS every time you're in your communities. We want to invite you to our colleges to meet with our presidents, see the cool things that are going on there, and we welcome any questions.
Well, we appreciate the presentation, and I love just kind of looking through the packet you all have given us and the offensive approach that you all have taken. And the pipeline, when we talked about that just a second ago, you know, this town spends a lot of money on education, more than anything else. And when we see inflation across our state and across our nation, we all seen this coming from a shortness of workers. You know, the demand is there and the supplies are low because we don't have the people to produce the products and provide the services. And so as we look at these things and we talk about a pipeline, and I know the other presenters, I probably wish they were at the table at the same time because they all coexist because of one another, but would love to look at a way that we could even catch the interest of a child even at a younger age. You know, we live in a culture where we have put this stigma for so many years around the skilled trade things. And I had the privilege last week of meeting with one of our local independent universities and talking about how they take the applied science degree and incorporate it with liberal arts and teaching someone with a skilled trade also how to communicate and to work well in an environment. And I think the focus really needs to be towards that in the marketing side of it, letting these kids know that there is a world of opportunity out there for them and that, you know, they were created for a special reason and to let them use those gifts to benefit themselves and their family. And so I think those are things you're going to see this town really take a focus on to try to meet these demands. Do we have any members who have any comments or questions at this time? Oh, we've got a whole list here. Chairman Beckler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the state funding model, are you satisfied with it, or do you think it ought to be just thrown in the garbage can and totally reworked or modified a bit? Can you speak to that, please?
We've had the opportunity this year to work with a panel of legislators and college and university presidents and feel that the model as it was last approved, you know, is really beneficial to the state and does give us a way to evaluate our outcomes.
Is performance-based funding working for you?
I'm going to ask my presidents to answer that because they live the direct approach at each college.
Having, well, both Scott and Chris and I, all three of us have been working in KCTCS prior to the model and after the model. And I think it is working. I think it's a step in the right direction. You can always debate whether the right metrics are in place or there are some things that maybe we're missing. That's always part of the debate. But I do like the focus on performance. Are we doing the things that we are charged to do? And from that standpoint, I think it is working within the state. I think the bigger question that we've had over the years is the size of the allocation that goes through the model. Is that adequate? And I think that's been part of the debate, and I appreciate what our legislature has done to help ensure that that model becomes as well funded as we possibly can so that we can direct the resources at all the things that we've presented to you today.
And I'll just echo that, Representative Beckler, that it really has, it allows us to really focus on the outcomes that are meaningful for the Commonwealth. And so performance-based funding has been, I think, a beneficial way of funding and moving money through those models.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, and like always, we're always pushed on time. So I think Representative Hale has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for your presentation. Ma'am, you mentioned in your just a moment ago about tuition. is the tuition the same for all of the community colleges?
Yes, sir. It's the same for every college and every across. And then our online tuition, which is the same, is the same. If you're outside the state, you can have in-state tuition for online courses. But every college is the same.
Okay, thank you. And then if I just might make one comment in this, please don't take this the wrong way. And I don't think this was allowed to happen in the last year or so. When schools were allowed to come into the colleges were allowed to come into the high schools and set up their tables and promote their universities, and in my specific district, about all the high schools allowed that to happen. But and I attended these, several of them. And one of the things that I noticed that there was really not a presence of the KCTS tables as much as there was of the universities, and I was a little concerned about that because I really like what you all do. So I would just kind of throw that out there too.
I appreciate you bringing that up, and we'll certainly check in with the president who serves your area and just normally.
And again, I know last year that nobody did that last year, but when we were allowed to do that, I just saw a lack of presence there, and I think you have. Personally, I think you have more to offer than anybody does.
Well, thank you. And if I can just add, really, both to your point, Senator Caslin, and to yours, Representative Hale, one of the things that KCTCS has done as a system of colleges to reach down into lower into the schools is partner with the Kentucky Chamber's Bus to Business program, which this year is both virtual and in person and goes through multiple grades based on schools that want to participate. But they speak directly with employers, and often it's about very trade-related jobs. It might be the maritime industry. It might be the healthcare industry. And then KCTCS has 10 minutes at the end of the program hour to speak to all the things that we can offer at the schools in those areas, and that finances should not be a barrier for anyone's participation, giving the financial the financial aid and work-ready scholarship availability. So that is one more way we're trying to reach out. But to your specific point, we'll follow up and just see what was going on.
And even the regional campuses out from those needs to make a presence at the local. Yes. At the local areas too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. So at this time, thank you all for the presentation. I'm going to ask you all to stay around to be able to listen to the next presentations because they're all going to work together. And then we can even, if there's more questions afterwards, but we're going to have to move pretty quick here. We've only got about 35 minutes left.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, can we ask the Office of Career and Technical Education to come forward? David Horstman, Associate Commissioner of the Office of Career and Technical Education. If you guys can announce yourself for the record and take off, and like I say, if you can keep your presentation to 15 minutes or so, and then we'll leave some time for questions. Thank you.
We may need a little tech support with our PowerPoint.
Well, I can take care of our introductions. As you said, my name is David Horstman. I'm the Associate Commissioner for Career and Technical Education in the office, or in the Department of Education, and I have with me today Ms. Leslie Slaughter, who is our Executive Advisor. We're honored to be here today to share with you a little bit about career and technical education in Kentucky and what we're doing. And as you heard from our partners at KCTCS, we do a lot of work hand in hand to make sure that we're in alignment with what all right, so first I want to take us back to when you say vocational education, what pops in a lot of folks' mind. We're changing that somewhat, but you look back at the old home ec and ag business and maybe a shop class that we saw that was just for those other students. It really wasn't for everybody. They were limited in their offerings and mostly focused in high school on specific training and skills to those areas. But today's career and technical education is not just for those other students. It's for all students. We have 16 national career clusters, and in Kentucky we have almost 150 career pathways, quite a reach from where we were 30 or so years ago. And today, when we talk a career pathway, we're not talking about 3 or 4 classes on just technical skills. These pathways are integrated with dual credit, other general education courses that enhance the technical programming and the pathway that students are in. These are also developed, as you heard, we have advisory committees in all of our program areas to make sure that we're in alignment with the skills. And many of those now are emphasizing the foundational academic skills along with employability as well as the technical skills. This graphic just shows you that 70% looks like a great number when you have about 200,000 kids in CTE in high school, and you have about 70% of those in career and technical education pathways. But I have to ask the question where, and as you said, Mr. Chair, just a few minutes ago, these other students may not knew about it, or they may not have access or the opportunity to experience those in high school, so that we can maximize and be efficient when we transition from high school to the post-secondary experiences. I'll share with you now a graphic that shows the 2019 and 2020 enrollments across these 16 or so program areas. And what I really want to point out to you is that these secondary career pathways, as you saw a lot of the data that was shared in the previous presentation, we are great partners with KY Stats and value everything that they do there. And through that partnership, we've targeted to get 85% of these career pathways to align with the top occupations in our state's top industry sectors. And then the other 15% are aligned to those support occupations that we have to have in our communities when we have large amounts of increase in jobs like we're going to see in the Hardin County area. Just to give you an idea of our delivery system, we have nearly 300 locations across the Commonwealth, with 53 of them being our state-operated area technology centers. And then we have 42 funded locally operated centers, which are referred to as the LAVACs. And we have another 200 or so that reside in comprehensive high schools and some other centers, and even in some areas we use KCTCS. And some of those have no funding at all. And you can see at the bottom the number of students that are served by those different venues.
So David did a great job setting up the context in the beginning about what today's career and technical education is and what it is not. We're often asked, what does high quality career and technical education at the secondary level truly look like? And so we utilize a framework that was developed by our professional association known as ACTE, or the Association for Career and Technical. There we go. Sorry, guys. So we utilize a framework that was developed by our professional association known as ACTE, or the Association for Career and Technical Education, to look at these 12 pillars or indicators as we evaluate implementation of secondary CTE. So for us, it's kind of a package approach. It's not just about the curriculum and the courses and the standards, but it's truly about looking at all of these indicators, how those look at a local and state implementation level. So I'll just point out a few. For example, when we talk about sequencing and articulation, you heard a great presentation from KCTCS. They are an incredible partner of ours, as well as many of our four-year institutions. So what does the acceleration opportunities look like for students in high school career pathways? The dual credit, the opportunity to have articulated credit once they pursue those programs at the post-secondary level, kind of a credit for prior learning approach, if you will. Student assessment, what does the industry certification credentialing opportunities look like for our students at the secondary level, and how are those certifications validated by our business and industry leaders in a way that we know they have labor market value or post-secondary value once they carry those on in the continuation of their education education and training journey. Additionally, I'll point out student organizations. Many of you are probably familiar with our career and technical student organizations like the FFA, FCCLA, FBLA, Skills USA, etc. We know that those have a profound impact on our students at the secondary level in terms of leadership development and those critical essential skills, those employability skills that we know both post-secondary institutions and our employers feel are so desperately needed in all students. So work-based learning opportunities is another that is a critical component of the work we do in our office, and promoting everything from shadowing and mentoring programs all the way through internships, co-ops, and registered youth apprenticeships. So for us, we want to ensure that you know that the implementation efforts of secondary CTE at both the state and local level are based on these 12 indicators of high quality performance and student outcomes. And so it drives the work that we do every day in our office. As David mentioned, we utilize the state's career clusters framework to organize our career pathways. So essentially, these are what I call the umbrella categories that include virtually every workforce sector, both public and private, that you can think of. So this is kind of how we organize and package our programs of study and promote those, especially at the earlier grades, elementary and middle school grades. And then it's within those career clusters that the very targeted career pathways are developed. So that's where we get into, as David said, the more intentional career pathway approach, looking at technical skills, the gen ed competencies, as well as the employability skills that will prepare them for a more specific career. We have 150 career pathway options that fall within these 16 career clusters. And as we look at how we develop and design those pathways, we really take a grade 9 through 16 approach. So we like to talk a lot about a career lattice model, where we take, starting in grade 9, the coursework the student needs to prepare for that career, both technical CTE courses as well as relevant gen ed. How do we align those courses in a seamless way that they progress into the certificate, the diploma, the associates, and even bachelor's and beyond opportunities that exist in our state's institutions? I do want to point out again that the alignment specifically of those gen ed courses is really important, not just from a minimum high school graduation perspective. We know that every student has to complete a number of credits and courses to graduate, but then also looking at what are the very specific gen ed courses that will most prepare that student as they continue on in the path and journey of pursuing that career. So whether it's a particular mathematics course, statistics, AP coursework, anything that's relevant to the preparation of that career pathway, we really work intensively with guidance counselors and career coaches to understand how we design what those courses look like and the sequence of those courses. And then, as I mentioned, when we talk high quality CTE, we're talking about embedding experiential learning. We're talking about early post-secondary opportunities when at all possible. So dual credit, AP, IB coursework, industry certifications that will lead to articulated credit at our post-secondary institutions. We also have what we call CTE end of program assessments. So those are essentially a test or an exam that they can take at the end of that career pathway at the high school level and earn articulated credit for as well if they're successful in the passing of that. And then again, work-based learning and dual credit as well.
Next, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about our workforce alignment. And as I said, on a local level, we have advisory committees for all of our programs in that community where we bring business and industry people in to guide us in our curriculum choices and what's needed for our students. At the state level, we have the business, education, and alignment teams, which are made up of the same type of folks at the state level. And we have one for each program area, and that's headed by one of our program area consultants. We also partner with our Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board in order to align our industry certification process that we do through a process where we get requests from business and other sources. That goes through committees in these beat committees. They evaluate them, make recommendations to the board, and then the board decides whether those should be added to the list or not. I'd also like to share just a bit about KY Stats and the role they play in what we're doing, we're looking at the same reports you heard about earlier, the future skills reports, even commuting patterns, data like that tells us where people reside and where they're going to work to help guide what our school's curriculum needs to look like. We also take a look at our high school feedback reports and CTE feedback reports to see where the students are, their outcomes, which have been very informative to us. And so using that data to inform what we do when we come to where we are today with the news that we've had of the increased job information coming from the Ford announcements. And that's when we take a look, and once they decide what it is exactly they're going to need in these areas, then that's where we start the innovation, bring the beat committees together and work with the local school districts and centers to make sure that we are flexible enough to provide them with the resources they need and update and change programs as needed to meet the demand.
We're really excited to share with you something that will be coming soon. We are using some of our federal ESSER dollars to develop a statewide college and career advising platform. So we've talked a lot about the fact today that we know the pipeline to high demand, high skill, high wage careers starts in K-12, P-12 really. And so we know that the advising components of that, as Chairman Caslin mentioned, is so critically important. There has to be intentional awareness and advising strategies in place K-12 to make students aware of these opportunities. So this is a partnership that will exist between KDE, the Council on Post-Secondary Education, and KY Stats. There will be a larger committee of institutions and other partners that will come together, including the Office of Adult Education and others, that will help us design this system. But the idea is that it becomes a one-stop shop for all learners. So whether we're talking about K-12 learners, traditional post-secondary or non-traditional post-secondary learners, there is a place, a clearinghouse, where they can go and find all of these resources for career exploration, reports, as you mentioned, some of them from KY Stats that talk about demand and job opportunities and growth. We even have reports on outcomes of our post-secondary degrees and programs. So what can a student expect to earn or make in a particular career? As well as all the program information that exists across all of our training and education providers, affordability resources. So when we talk KIA and the know how to go approach to college, those things will be embedded. And then what I'm most excited about is where we'll bring our employer community to the table and develop a platform by which they can virtually connect with students and mentor students. So whether that be through virtual shadowing opportunities or virtual work-based learning, or even just the opportunity to mentor and do Q&A sessions and things like that with learners who have questions about the system.
And I just wanted to add to that, you mentioned the early career introductions, and that's one thing our office is doing, moving our career exploration resources down to middle school and even elementary. And we've got one great consultant that's been working to develop those resources and roll them out. But to talk about our legislative priorities, we go back to 2019 when we had a joint chamber task force that looked into career and technical education based on some reports that had been done years ago, and brought in SREB to do some discussions and analysis of what was going on in the states around us and certain opportunities there, and a financial study that looked at the funding for CTE. And the summary of that was that there's a lot of work to be done in reform, in governance and finance, because there's some inequities in terms of access to these programs and how the funding is done. So at this point, we're in the process of taking a look at how that might look with a unified formula for all of our career and technical education, no matter where it's being taught. Kids ought to have that same opportunity, and other ways of how to expand those options to develop new programs and fund new programs. And using the model that Leslie just talked about in terms of a quality program, make sure that we incentivize that through this formula to make sure that we're putting top-notch programs on the table.
Lastly, we just wanted to share with you a new CTE marketing and branding initiative that we have launched at KDE. This started in year 2016 as a part of a grant that Kentucky was very fortunate to be a part of, known as New Skills for Youth. It was a national grant. We were one of 10 states who received the funding to do transformative work around career and technical education. And one of the requirements of that grant was focused on marketing and branding CTE opportunities to K-12 students. And so it's from that grant that we started the work with Red 7E, a marketing firm here in Kentucky, to help us develop a new logo and tagline. You see it in the bottom left-hand corner of our PowerPoint slide. So Kentucky CTE Empowered is our new logo. We're really excited about some of the brand messaging that's being developed right now. We have airtime that will be coming, so we have radio and TV ads that are being developed to really target not just students, but we know parents are a critical audience as well, and oftentimes where the stigmas that we mentioned earlier still exist, unfortunately. So we're really trying to make sure we're reaching all audiences with our efforts, and then working internally with our KDE communications team to develop a social media campaign to tell success stories of CTE students, as well as doing some webpage and more visual graphic type of rework as well. So very excited. I think that the logo is on the last slide, just to kind of show you some intentionality as well with the shading of the logo. So education and employers partnering together to really create that empowered CTE system for our students. So more to come on that.
We appreciate the presentation and the hard work you all put into it, and what you do to affect all the students' lives and to prepare them for the workforce. And as our next presenters make their way up, going back to our first two presentations, you're going to see that our economics are booming here in Kentucky. Over the last 10 years, you continue to see Kentucky to be the place that so many businesses want to locate, and the trickle-down effect from those things. And then, eventually it gets to a point to where it sells itself. Good public policy that's been put in place has allowed companies to come to Kentucky and be competitive. The last thing that we need to be doing now as a state is getting them here and not having the folks to fill the positions. And I think these are the conversations we're having. And at this time, the Cabinet for Economic Development is going to kind of give us an update on some of those projects and what their needs are.
Good morning. Thank you for having us today. My name is Katie Smith. I'm the Deputy Secretary and the Commissioner of the Department for Financial Services here at the Cabinet. Again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to discuss some of the activities that have been going on here at the Cabinet. I'm sure many of you have read about a lot of our exciting projects and announcements that have been going on. And I'm happy to report that we do have a lot of projects in the pipeline that we are working, and we hope to win several of those over the next few months. Today with me is Christina Slattery. She's our Deputy Commissioner of the Department for Business Development. So I'm going to turn it over to Christina so she can walk us through the presentation.
Thank you so much. Just want to confirm, can everyone see my screen okay and hear me okay?
We can hear you and see the screen.
Wonderful. Thank you. So as the Deputy Secretary said, I'm Christina Slattery. I am a part of our business development team, and happy to present to you today and talk a little bit about some of the successes and challenges that we've seen as we've worked through this past record-breaking year. So we will start by talking a little bit about the Blue Oval SK project. This was an exciting opportunity, obviously, for the governor and the Commonwealth to be able to compete for this, and one that was about a year in the making, that we had an opportunity to work directly with the company. We didn't have a consultant. We got to leverage those existing relationships that we have with the company to really work through what this opportunity is. So just as a refresher, the Blue Oval SK has committed to 5,000 new jobs and $5.8 billion in investment for this particular project. All in one day. They announced both our 2 battery facilities there in Glendale. Each of those facilities will be 43 gigawatt battery facilities. So those are some of the largest projects that have been announced to date for these different battery facilities. And then, across the border there in Memphis, the Blue Oval City, where there will be another battery facility. with an OEM plant. So we are really excited to continue having these conversations and to bring this project to fruition. Before we move too much further, I want to just talk about 2021 year to date. So these are some of the statistics that you typically hear us talking about from a cabinet perspective. So these numbers are as of probably 2 weeks ago, and there are more announcements that are pending here on top of this. So over 15,000 jobs, 110 new project announcements, over 10 billion in new investment. And really what you don't see here is the diversity of what makes up these announcements. So within this, within these numbers are both new and existing companies that have decided to expand. We love our existing industry expansions because that means that they're continuing to grow and thrive and do well in the Commonwealth, and we really value those opportunities. Within that, two of our larger companies with both Toyota and GE having huge reinvestment announcements to move them into the future. So really, really excited about those opportunities. A good mix of both domestic and foreign investment projects within these numbers, and type of industry. So we'll talk a little bit about the different industries represented, but one example that I love is the Wieland project. So this is a company, the German company, that announced both a headquarters project in Louisville and then followed up with a copper facility announcement down the road in Shelbyville. So it gave us an opportunity to really flex and show how we can support different types of projects within just the same company. So we were really, proud of that opportunity and others. Other things that you don't see within these announcements are, I believe, 3 different product development initiative projects where we have matched local communities in their efforts to develop sites for future projects and expansions, and our first rural hospital loan program. So, we typically hear a lot about some of the bigger, larger announcements, but there's a lot of things that the cabinet staff work with and support, from the workforce side to site development to some of these loan programs that we really are proud of and we appreciate all of the support on. I'm going to talk a little bit about wages. So, one thing that we have seen and we expected to see and want to continue to have grow is that average hourly wage for incentivized projects is trending up year over year. Year to date, you can see we are at $24.15 an hour for incentivized projects. So those are just projects that we have worked with through the KEDFA, Kentucky Economic Development Finance Authority process. And that's our second highest year if you look at the last 7 years. And really, the one anomaly there that's noted at the bottom is our partner UPS, wonderful company, a couple of years ago hired several pilots that made a very high salary and sort of drove up that wage a little bit. So that's part of the reason why you're seeing that number a little bit higher for 2019. Top 5 industries. So the Blue Oval SK announcement really pushed automotive to that #1 spot, whereas metals, food and beverage, automotive, those 3 industries tend to shift up and down, but really the Blue Oval announcement pushed automotive over the edge. We do see food and beverage continue and agritech continue to be a top category, as well as business and financial services. So another reason why you're seeing some of that average incentivized wage go higher with projects like Fidelity and WellCare. Again, companies that are proving that Kentucky, while we are an automotive manufacturing state, we can have success in a lot of different areas and really supply a diverse workforce. Metals is so tied in with the automotive industry. We had a company in yesterday, and for a site visit, and really the proximity to the players like Novelis and Logan and Century and Alaris, and you name them, are what have had them looking here at Kentucky. So we are very proud to continue to see those existing metals industry grow, like Novelis that we just were able to celebrate a couple of weeks ago there in Guthrie. So EV and battery projects, obviously with the existing 500 plus automotive companies that are already in Kentucky, we are very well suited to be able to attract these types of projects. And some of that will be new industry that supply aluminum foil to the battery cathode. We have learned a lot about making batteries and the different parts and pieces that go into that and how Kentucky industry can support that. A lot of the growth that we see, we expect to come from our existing industry, like Firestone, who recently announced a project that was directly tied to electric vehicles. The suspension systems that vehicles need to support those heavy batteries required Firestone to reinvest and grow there in Southeast Kentucky. So we really feel like the opportunity for Kentucky to capitalize on this expanding EV market will continue to bear fruit. You all have probably seen and heard about our map that shows within a day's drive how many people, how many automotive suppliers you can reach. We now have added to our inventory a map that shows 7 battery suppliers that are going to be within a day's drive. So really, with one of those right being in the heart of Kentucky and Glendale and right, southern in Tennessee, we expect to continue to have suppliers and customers of Blue Oval and others that are looking at Kentucky. Power is huge. The energy needed to support these projects, the megawatt power loads that we're seeing are unlike anything we've seen before. And so our utility partners, it is really critical that we continue to talk about how we're able to support these projects from a utility standpoint. These companies want to hear about how we can help meet renewable goals, and the Kentucky Office of Energy and Environment is our best partner in having those conversations. And then Kentucky's low industrial electric rates due to having a regulated state with the Public Service Commission is really an asset for us and a story that we like to tell. So those are all of the wonderful things that we feel like we have in our favor. Our needs clearly, it's inventory. Number one, inventory of physical sites and buildings for these companies to locate in. We've got a lot of communities that have done some great work developing sites, and we still have a handful of great sites out there all across Kentucky at a variety of different sizes, but we need to continue to add more, especially when companies want river and rail and some of those critical factors. I think you'll see our cabinet and others continuing to focus on that site development piece. And then what we're here to talk about today, workforce, and how do we support our existing industry and these new industries coming to Kentucky, and being able to find the individuals that they need to fill those jobs. So we're really in a unique situation with Ford and SK, Blue Oval SK, in that this is going to be a skill set that we don't have a curriculum ready made for. KCTCS, who you heard from earlier, has been an amazing partner in standing with us and saying we're ready to develop that curriculum. What does Blue Oval SK need? And Kentucky is here to be flexible and build that. So I'll talk a little bit about that more later. One thing I wanted to highlight first is something that we have been doing for years to support existing and new industry, which is through the legislative funds. Bluegrass State Skills Corporation, as a part of our cabinet, awards both grants and tax credits for new and existing employees for skills upgrade training on an annual basis. So this is not training that's just regulatory in nature that companies have to give. We ask for these companies to put forward training plans that really level up their employees and give them a skill set that they don't currently have. We favor companies that pay higher wages and that are involved in local economic development efforts. So we're really proud to show 18,000 plus workers in 2021 that have been trained or impacted through these Bluegrass State Skills grants. Bluegrass State Skills is also the organization that, or the board that approves UPS Metro College grants and other special allocations that come from the legislator for companies like Ford. So really proud to have BSSC as a part of the cabinet's organization. So I have, for today's discussion, split up what types of workforce needs we're seeing, specifically working with projects and companies on the recruitment side and on the training side. So, on the recruitment side, one thing that I feel like all of our workforce partners have been doing, you've heard a lot of conversations about branding and new websites and how we tell our story. Kentucky's got a lot of wonderful things going on in the workforce world, but we can get bogged down by individual programs or entities. And we are working with our workforce partners to tell that story in a way that we are a united workforce front. So what is Kentucky's workforce brand? What does that mean? For individuals that are not familiar with Kentucky, diving too deep into some of those different programs can be confusing. So we have a concerted effort to really tell that story in a different way that is unique to Kentucky, and our workforce partners have been wonderful to work with us on that. Obviously, talent attraction is huge. And, that's what I hear when I hear the tourism presentation that we had earlier today is it's all, how do we get people to come to Kentucky? How do we encourage alumni to move back to Kentucky? I think different states and communities have done a lot of creative things and developed different programs. And I personally can't be an advocate for any particular one. I think, though, that it's important for us to continue to think about attracting people as well as new companies. One thing with Ford that was so critical in Blue Oval was to be flexible and creative. So the different programs you've heard talked about earlier that are work-based learning programs like Kentucky Fame and others, in my opinion, have been born out of these kind of creative and flexible conversations. We don't have a program right now that fits your needs. However, what do you need, Company X, and we can build that for you. So Ford has been really pleased with Kentucky's ability to say, we will wait and see. We will show you what we have and build what you need it to be. Ford hasn't built batteries yet either. So we are going to, develop this together. And in some cases, maybe with our counterparts in Tennessee to best serve the needs of Blue Oval. So dedicating support staff has been another critical part of how we communicate to projects. There are a lot of people in the workforce realm that can deliver a variety of resources and services. And we are all willing to step back and say, here's your single point of contact that will usher you through that process. And that is so critical to companies for us to be able to do that, to have someone that's essentially an HR consultant for them, that's a Kentucky representative. And that may be from the college, from Education and Workforce, but that is received really well when we're able to say you're going to have one person or one organization that's going to shepherd you through these different opportunities. And then, we stand ready to have the resources to support onboarding. So do we have the ability for these companies to list their jobs on a state website? Do we have the ability to send staff out to Georgia to look at SK's facility there, or in some cases, Korea, where they make their batteries? It's all about listening and being able to respond and be flexible to what these companies need. And then I can't speak enough about the importance of diversity in hiring practices. So
Christy,
for the Blue Oval,
I'm sorry, Christy, this is the chairman, Castlin here. We've got about a minute if you can wrap it up real quick because there's another committee meeting. Sorry.
Nope, no problem. I'll go to the next slide. Again, the last thing that I'll say is we stand ready to not just prescribe a program, but to listen to what companies need and to develop that. And KCTCS and the other various workforce partners and Education and Workforce Cabinet have done a wonderful job at just standing ready and listening to what those companies' needs are. So I'll stop there because I know we're close on time, and see if there are any questions.
Well, we appreciate your presentation. It's exciting to see all the economic growth across Kentucky. And as we can tell, a 2-hour-long committee meeting, there's a great deal of interest in seeing our economy grow, supplying the skilled, trained people to fill these positions. And I think it's going to be something that the General Assembly takes a really hard look at, continuing to make sure that we can meet the demands of our companies and businesses across the state. So this is the final meeting of this committee, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.